Everybody ready?
Sure.
Yep. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're here. Okay. All right. Good evening and welcome to the September meeting of the Community Consolidated School District 21 Board of Education. Our first order of business is to establish a quorum. Secretary Riddick, if you would call the roll, please.
Phil?
Aye.
Debbie?
Here.
I am here. Stacy Allen?
Yes.
Arlen?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Stacy?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, if everybody would please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you and welcome again. Did want to acknowledge that the month of September officially, nationally, is Hispanic Heritage Month. So I want to acknowledge that when we have close to 30–40% of our community is Hispanic. We want to thank them for the work that they do, both staff-wise and our community members, and recognize the many contributions of that community. Also, I wanted to acknowledge, and I know in just a few minutes he will be part of a presentation to this group, but a former long time staff member at Cooper Junior High and then middle school, Hugh Brady, also a former involved with the Education Association, Executive Director. So Hugh, welcome, and we look forward to hearing you this evening in just a few minutes. Okay, for those of you, just as a reminder, for those of you that are intending to offer comments during the public comment section, if you would fill out a form, low advance notice that the public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. You're not allowed to pass your time over to someone else. That's the policy of the district. And when you fill out the form, if you would drop it to Ms. Del Rio to my right, she will make sure that I have that so that I can call on you at the appropriate time. Also, do know that our meetings are broadcast. So we, at different points, there may be a reference to those community members that may be out in virtual world. Okay. With that, the first order of business then is a special presentation. Mike, Arlen, would you like to introduce?
I will do that, and I want to give a little background. So it is true that Hugh Brady was one of our great teachers, taught my daughter the Constitution. She's been involved and interested in government ever since, actually. And maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I ran into Hugh somewhere and he invited me to participate in a group that he had founded to develop properties for permanent supportive care for individuals who had either mental health or disabilities, but who could live on their own. And so I joined that group, and we've been working together for quite some time now. And the most recent now is a major initiative to improve mental health services in Wheeling Township. My history in this area goes back to when I was a teacher in special ed, but I worked for Governor Dick Ogilvy in Illinois. And at that time, without making a long story longer, mental health care in the state of Illinois was poor. We had closed down all the warehouses for the mentally ill, but we never built new facilities. So Hugh and Laurie were involved in a project to create programs of money, funds for programming in Wheeling Township that would improve what we can do for individuals with disabilities, substance abuse, as well as mental health issues. And we all know how many issues are out there, many from the pandemic. And in fact, only yesterday, there was a woman who nearly killed her nephew by throwing him in the water. And apparently she has a long history of mental health issues, which have never been treated. So I've been involved in this ever since. I'm delighted to be working with Hugh again. He's one of those individuals who gave his life to kids, and now he's continuing with Lori to help our community, and we appreciate everything you did then and everything you're doing now, Hugh.
Absolutely.
So thank you for having us here tonight. Just one thing, as Arlen mentioned, we work with a group that works to create supportive housing for people living with various disabilities. And two of our buildings are in District 21, Hart's Place, which is just a block south of Buffalo Grove High School, and Phil Haven, which is on Hintz Road, and the kids at Phil Haven go to Tarkington.
Yep.
And it's got 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, so there's families living there. And last I checked, there was a school bus that stopped in front of Phil Haven every day, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
well.
Lori.
Thank you. Do we have the presentation to show? Okay, and the remote works just like most remotes? Okay, great. Thank you very much. My name is Lori Gray-Nowie. I want to thank you for having us tonight. We really appreciate this opportunity. We are here tonight to talk to you about community mental health boards and why we're trying to create one here in Wheeling Township. So I became involved with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, when my youngest son was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was 20 years old, and it obviously changed his life, but it changed our family's lives as well. I retired early. I retired 4 years ago, and so my husband laughs because he says I work harder or spend more time now doing all this unpaid work than I ever did at my job. I'm not quite sure about that, but right now we're full-time trying to get out the word about this referendum. So what is a 708 board? And we call it a 708 board because it is governed underneath an Illinois state statute, and the number used to have a 708 in it. So I'll go back and forth, so I'll explain that now. It's a 708 Community Mental Health Board. So what does it do? It is going to help those with either mental health issues, intellectual and developmental disabilities, or substance use issues. The idea is to eliminate long wait lists and reduce the gaps in services. It doesn't provide the services. Instead, what it does is to provide funding, mostly to existing agencies. It could be schools, it could be the police departments, so it can be other organizations, but they're not providing the services directly. It would only be used for Wheeling Township residents, and the first thing they're required to do is to develop a plan to determine specifically what the needs are here in Wheeling Township. There's about 90 of these already across Illinois. It is unique to Illinois, and they're all across the state. There are currently 9 in Cook County, and we're hoping we'll have another 3. It's on the ballot in Wheeling Township for Cook County, Wheeling Township, Schaumburg Township, and Vernon Township is Lake County. Sorry about that. So those 2. It's also on the ballot in 5 other areas in DuPage and Will County. It's an entirely volunteer board, so none of the board members are paid. They consist of 7 to 9 members. One of those would be a part of the Wheeling Township Board. So we're going to talk some about what the need is, because there are a lot of services in Wheeling Township, but there's still also a lot of need. When we talked with our local police departments, we met with them over a year ago, and they talked to us about how many calls there are. In Wheeling Township alone, in 1 year, there were almost 1,000 calls related to mental health crisis or substance use crisis. About 1/4 of those were related to suicide. 1 out of every 4 young adults, and I'm sure that here in the schools you see this quite a bit, have struggled with suicidal thoughts. The statistics for mental health are staggering, and that is why it's in the news so much. there's over 10 million Americans that have a diagnosis of either mental health issue or substance use.
If I could just toss in, when I was at Cooper, we had teams, typically 100, 125 students, and almost every year, student would be missing and, bump into the school nurse, I haven't seen so-and-so for a while, with strep throat or what's going on. I said, oh, he's in the psych ward down at Northwest Community Hospital, or he's in the psych ward down at Ecsc. And sometimes there would be discharge planning, and sometimes the kid would just show back up. And and some, as I said, almost every year, some years there would be 2, some none. The year after I retired, I was talking to some former colleagues, and they said on their team, there were 7 kids that were hospitalized for mental illness problems in 1 year. So it's not something that exists far away. It's here.
It definitely is. Thank you. This is a slide from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there's 2 things that I think are really important out of this. One is that mental illness is really non-discriminatory. It affects people of all races, all ages. It really doesn't care. It's also very predominant. Again, when you look at how many people have mental health issues, and then what's scariest or saddest about it is how many people are getting treatment. And there's just not enough people getting treatment for lots of reasons. Stigma being part of it, but also the lack of services and the cost of services. Developmental and intellectual disabilities. Here in Wheeling Township, while kids are in school, I think things are pretty good. I haven't really heard too many complaints from parents with kids that are in school. The problems that I've heard of is we've had to get lots of signatures to get this on the ballot, so we've talked to lots of people. And in doing this, I've heard a lot of stories. One from a good friend of ours whose daughter went to school here in this area, and until she was 22, everything was great. And then she was on this PUNS list, this wait list, waiting for services.
From the state.
From the state, correct. And so when she graduated from high school, initially she was just at home watching television. There was no structure to her day. She didn't have things to do like she did when she was in school. She finally got off this list. It took 8 years. And still the services that they're able to provide for her are limited. And unfortunately, Illinois is really ranked low for its ability to help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's ranked 42nd in the state, out of the nation. Substance use disorders. Hugh and I both work with mental health issues more than anything else. We're both very active in NAMI. We talk a lot about stigma, but when it comes to substance use disorders, there's even more stigma associated with it. And I think that because of that, much harder for people to seek help. In 2020 alone, 60 residents of Wheeling Township died from opiate overdose. And we had a presentation last night about substance use disorders, had folks there that are experts in this field, and they were talking about the rise in fentanyl. They said of all the issues with substance use right now, fentanyl being in these products is the #1. One of the things that they do is to test drugs for people to make sure that they are what they're supposed to be before they use this drug. Trying not to judge people. They said they found fentanyl in everything, absolutely everything, that it was really scary.
And one thing we learned is that 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a fatal dose.
Yeah,
Whoa, that much?
yeah, it was really eye-opening, and we think we've heard a lot, and we still learned quite a bit.
And I would just say that in the years I was at Cooper, I had 2 former students die from overdoses. One was a freshman at BG when he died, and then 2 or 3 years later, I had his sister in class, nicest girl you could imagine, but she needed help too. He needed help and didn't get it, and then as a result, the whole family was struggling.
Right. And dual diagnosis, having mental health issues and having substance use issues, is very common. The police talked about that in our meeting with them as well, that when they get these calls, these crisis calls, that the two issues are often related. And it's a sad statistic that over 100,000 Americans died in 1 year. Last night, they said it was up to 107,000.
Actually, I think that number is horrifically underreported. I got to be honest with you. I think it's horrifically underreported, the deaths part of it, and especially from alcohol. It was just they're not catching alcohol.
Right. And actually, that was one of the things that I've learned about this as well, that there's a lot of talk about opioids and the damage that they do and fentanyl. But when you look statistically at injuries and deaths from overdose, from substance use in general, just alcohol is the number one, absolutely number one. And, you know,
Especially in this area, in the northwest suburbs, it's incredibly underreported and undertreated.
yeah, right, you know, and just because it's legal doesn't mean that it can't harm you. There's a huge cost in doing nothing. One of the comments that I've heard from people is we're already doing enough, but clearly a lot more services are needed. And there's a huge cost in not providing those services. You know, depending on what statistics you look at, the payback for every dollar spent, we get back $4. And other places, those statistics or the percentage is even higher. And one of the things we usually mention here, you know, about the cost of doing nothing is that Cook County is the single largest mental health provider in the state.
Cook County
And-
Jail.
Cook County Jail. Yep. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Big, big difference. Small word, but big difference. Cook County Jail.
So if I can just interject, because that's a really important point, and that is today, while the village of Wheeling has a great program, Arlington Heights is doing a lot of good things, so is Buffalo Grove. If a police officer picks up an individual who's having a mental health issue, but has not committed a crime, there's very limited things they can do. One of which is, of course, they could take them to jail, but they haven't committed a crime, which is why people wind up in Cook County Jail. The other is they can take them to a hospital. There is no middle ground. One of the things we've talked about and trying to develop maybe out of these funds would be a, quote, living room. Maybe you want to explain how that works, because it's operating in areas near here, up in Waukegan, but nothing around here. So the police don't have that opportunity to take a person to sit and talk with an expert and somebody to try to talk them down in a calm situation. But maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah. I know for myself personally, having a living room program or a mental health crisis center, as it's known, is definitely high on my wish list. I don't know what this community mental health board, if it's approved, would rank as number one, but for me personally, this would be high on my list. There's really not good choices. If somebody's having a crisis and the family is feeling threatened, if they call the police, that person's either going to go to jail or they're going to go to the hospital, and odds are pretty good they don't want to do either one.
And one of the things that happens is there's such an overload, is oftentimes people in the ER, because of mental health crises, often wait 2, 3, 4, 5 days. We talked to a woman who was in the ER for 5 days before they could get her a residential placement.
Right. And it's hard for the police. They have to file a lot of paperwork, and it's hard on the person. It's hard on the family, watching your loved one being taken away by police. It's a really tough situation, and there are alternatives that work. We just don't have anything in our area. Probably most importantly, as we've been talking to folks, and I'm sure all of you can attest to this, you know, who doesn't know someone that's affected by one of these three things? Mental health, substance use, intellectual developmental disability. If it's not your family, it's a friend's son, a friend of a friend. We all know somebody that's affected by this. So this is how the process works. Right now, where we're at is we're trying to get the referendum passed. If it's voted on by the voters, approve it on November 8th, then the Wheeling Township Board would appoint the board members. Then the Mental Health Board would conduct that needs survey, prepare a budget. The Wheeling Township Board would ultimately have to approve that. And then once they have a budget that they can work off of, then there's a grant process, grants are submitted, and then funds are distributed. Obviously, it would take a little bit of time. It's been very successful in other communities, which is why we decided to try to do this here.
And one of the things I'd add, Lori mentioned it briefly, but just to emphasize, is the state statute that governs these says that all the funds generated have to be spent for residents of that, in this case, township. And so the money doesn't go to Cook County or disappear down into Springfield. It's local money for local needs.
So there's not really an administrative cost to the boards, isn't that correct?
Right.
There's
There
no
is no
administrative
administrative
cost,
cost.
isn't it?
There is no administrative cost because there's no paid staff.
Right.
I mean, I guess there would probably be some, for somebody to keep track of where the money is going. I mean, some staff member has to do that, keep track of the grants and actually issue checks, but it'd be relatively small.
But I think the point that many people would question, and I've seen it in social media, is the creation of a new bureaucracy to handle the funds. That really wouldn't apply with a 708 board, right?
So a 708 board is really kind of like another committee they're gonna do the legwork. Hopefully, they're made up of experts, people that know mental health issues, people that know developmental disabilities, people that know substance use, maybe somebody with a financial background, so that they can do the work to determine where those needs are and how best to kind of pull it all together, where those gaps in services are and how to best reduce those gaps and how to best reduce the wait lists. You know, is it another group? Yes, but I mean, every board has different committees. That's basically what this is.
Yeah, but Lori, we're not starting a new agency. It's not a new agency. There's not a new organization. There's not a whole bunch of paid staff.
Right. There's no paid staff. It's
Right.
basically having a committee within the Wheeling Township Board, which they have already.
Yeah.
The big thing that it's going to do is it provides, I won't say a guaranteed source of money, but much more guaranteed than many of the agencies get now. Now they have to apply for grants every year, every 3 years. They would still have to apply for those grants, but knowing that this money has to be spent on Wheeling Township residents would make a big difference. So in Wheeling Township, our goal would be to raise $1.5 million. Those of us that have been working on this, for the average price home, it's $28.36 annually, which is about the price of getting a large pizza last time I ordered one out. The levy is capped at 0.15%. There isn't any mental health board in Cook County that charges at that rate. So most of them, the average is $1.5 million, 1.6 for those 9. We thought $1.5 million would be great to get. Wheeling Township already spends about $500,000, so it could actually even be less that they would decide would be a good amount. I really can't say at this point. And 708 boards work. We talked about the living room program. Other boards have done youth mental health awareness. They've helped with addiction, residential, and treatment services. We talked about the housing program that Hugh and I are both active in. It couldn't help with housing, but it could help provide the support at the housing. So the whole idea behind the housing that we work with is that it's supportive, so that there's people there in the building that can help people get to appointments if they need to, provide the support if they're having the bad day. There's just so many different things. Some of it's used for early learning centers. It really depends on the area.
And I was at a meeting last week with Harlan, I think it was last week, and one of the people that was there or a couple of people there at the meeting were from Omni Youth Services, and they were, their eyes were lighting up,
Yep.
like old Scrooge McDuck with little dollars.
Yeah, we went before the Linked Together organization last week.
We've spoken with a lot of different groups, and the agencies that we've spoken with are all in favor of having this. Here's my contact information. We also have a website. It's www.advocatefor708.org. A great place to get more information.
Okay. Any board members have a question? Question, statement, question? Okay, Stacy?
So this is great. I actually work in substance abuse and mental health outreach. So I'm the person when a family doesn't have anybody and they don't know what to do. I'm the person that gets that call, frequently goes to the hospital. I can do a petition if I need to. But you're right, there are not enough services. And alcohol has been incredibly underreported. And I would say out of the pandemic, alcohol use and mental health, I think, have been the two things that I see as the other shoe falling right now. So my question to you really is, what can we do to help? This is much needed. I would say it touches all of us in many different ways, but as elected officials, as residents of Wheeling Township, what can we do to help you get the word out?
That'd be wonderful. That's the big thing, is getting the word out. So giving presentations like this, we are trying to reach as many people personally as we can. We're going to be door knocking. We're going to events. All of you got little handouts. We're going to events and handing that out and trying to talk to individuals. We have yard signs. We're sending out handwritten postcards. I have my own business card, but my information, is there. I tend to talk with my hands. So just let me know you'd like to help, and we will send you a list of things that are open.
Arlen knows how to find me.
I do, I'll get you.
Yeah, and social media is, if you don't have a lot of time, I know we're all busy people. If you could go to our Facebook site and our Instagram site, like and share posts, that alone is helpful, but all the above.
Yeah, first of all, I need a yard sign. I want to put it out there. I've already, since I did go to the one event, I've told several people about this. I would suggest getting to the farmers markets and getting your information out there. I actually, if someone would contact me later, I have some ideas for other information, other people that might want to be interested that would be very helpful, because I'm on the NSSEO board.
Oh, wonderful.
Excellent, thank you.
So I am all in for this. Anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Let us know what we
Let
can
us
do to
know.
help.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
there, because there is not, I've had a need for mental health in my family, and yes, it was a 36-hour wait at Northwest Community Hospital to get an inpatient
At
facility.
least.
There are many times, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, we need this. Let me know what I can do to help.
If we could make a similar presentation to the NSSEO board, that would be wonderful.
I will talk to Dr. Hackett tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, and
Tracy?
for anybody out there, send me an email and I will reply quickly.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Stacy?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Thank you very much for the presentation. I am supportive as well, but my question is, you indicated that 708 boards don't provide the services, they provide the funding for the services. What oversight or audit function or, does the 708 board have to ensure that the funds given are actually used for that intended purpose?
That is a great,
Well, I think I can answer that. That is, Wheeling Township is a governmental agency that is audited. And so the funds will flow through Wheeling Township, not just through some obscure agency. And so they're an audited public agency. They have to account for where their funds are going, and these are taxpayer dollars. So it would be audited just like the rest of their programs are. They're already spending about $500,000 in this field now.
So that wouldn't be the board's function, that would be.
No,
the Wheeling-
that's correct, that's correct. It would
For
not be the
example,
board's function.
One of the 708 boards is in Hanover Township, which is the furthest most west township in Cook County. They've had a 708 board for probably 40 years. And they get a lot of services from the Ecsc Center in Elgin, which is not in Hanover Township. But a lot of people go there because that's the nearest best place. And so they've got one of the township employees, one of her jobs is to look through the claims and make sure everybody who they've submitted a claim for actually lives in Hanover Township. So she was saying she's memorized all the streets in Hanover Township. So she can
Bet.
yes, no, yes, yes.
And I just want to remind, because we've mentioned this before, that Kim Klein actually serves on a 708
Oh, right,
Township
right,
Board
yeah.
in Bloomingdale Township. So you can probably speak a little bit from personal experience here.
Well, yeah, so in terms of, when we were reviewing and accepting grant proposals, right, that compliance piece comes when they're reporting back to us to make sure that they're listing who they're serving, where they live, how much is spent. And so that's how we were able to really solidify that the money was staying within the township.
Bloomingdale just finished their process, right? Yeah.
I want to let the community know that, that it is very rare that this board ever invites a outside group to make a presentation such as the one this evening. But because of the profoundness of the need, and Arlen, one of our board members' involvement in this as well, was the reason that we did invite you all to come and share about the 708 board. We cannot, it's been a long-term policy, and I'm sure Hugh realizes this, that as a board, we do not take positions on, from organizations outside of District 21, any park district, any village. We do not make any type of an official resolution in support or against. However, I think you can tell by the nature of the questions and the reception that you've gotten this evening that there is significant support among the seven of us, at least, to the cause. And we wish you well, and I'm sure there'll be more involvement as we get closer to November 8th. So
Thank you
Lori
very
and
much.
Hugh,
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much.
thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Arlen, thank you for bringing this group before us.
My
today.
pleasure. You know, I think it's ironic. We're going to speak later this evening a little bit about programming that the district is doing for young people who have issues and problems. We know that the need is there after school. I know it. I've been through it. Others of us have been through it. And so we're here to try to help after school and through the evenings with people who have problems.
Once again, thank you. We now move on to board communications. Let me start off before the official monthly meeting this evening. We had a finance committee meeting. And a couple of things that were discussed during that were fairly perfunctory type of items, resolutions about transferring funds for debt service certificates, stuff that really grabs the imagination. However, we did, and we had a forecasting update as far as something that's coming up. But probably the thing that may be most interest to the folks in the room tonight and listening to us is that we had a construction update of all the construction activity that we had going on this past summer rather. Our CSBO, Michael DiBartolo, gave us an excellent update on everything that's been going on in the current construction. Things are coming in as we expected. Our costs have been within what we expected. Nothing going over. So a great job with our service partners and with Michael and his team to make sure that that happened. So it brought us to the next level of conversation, which is now we have another few summers of construction based on the referendum. But we seem, based on the how efficient our construction for the first two summers have gone, and our general business acumen and how we've conducted our affairs the last couple of years, that our fund balances have gone up. So there is a very, very strong consideration to looking at our ongoing capital plan and maybe doing some rearranging. And the number one goal right now, at this point in time, is to address something that unfortunately we've had we've been unable to address for the last number of years, too many years, and that is the outside classrooms, as Bert Perlow and Greg Klatecki used to refer to them, and that is the playground issues. So we are looking very strongly for the next season, next summer, to prioritize a couple of our playground areas to be addressed. And over the next couple months, I think, we're looking to hopefully get to a point where we can go out to bid on that once we're secure in the amount of money that we've got over and above what we expected. And I can tell you that if I may, and no one's going to stop me, the number one priority that we see, and this is a collective decision, a judgment, is the playground right across the street from London School, from where we are right now, and that is Field. So stay tuned, stay in touch with us as we go through the next couple meetings, because I think you'll be, for those of you in the audience that may be from Field, I see at least one hand. I suspect there may be a couple more, but I think we're really going to be able to do some good things in terms of upgrading our playgrounds over the next 2 to 3 years, beginning with the very next construction season, which is the summer of '23. So with that, that's the Finance Committee update. I'll move on to NSSEO.
Thank you. Didn't have a real lot at our meeting. It was fairly quiet this month. One thing is, well, we have our next meeting on October 11th, which is also the Tarkington ribbon cutting. So I will be able to be there and then tear out so I can get to NSSEO. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make the one at Twain because that is NSSEO's bingo night, which starts at 7. So if anyone is interested and to go, I will save a spot for you. But it's a lot of fun. Bill was there with me.
Pre-COVID, yes.
Pre-COVID, it was a lot of fun. It is the biggest fundraiser that they do for their foundation. And then their foundation gives grants out for various projects throughout the year. And they made a ton of money last time and it was just so much fun. Everybody just had a ball. So if you are interested, there's also raffles available that are online. I will forward the email out probably tomorrow if anybody wants to join in on the raffles, if they don't want to get to bingo. So, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Next is the EdRed update. Bill?
Thank you, Phil. EdRed's annual kickoff luncheon will be held Thursday, October 6th. It will feature a panel discussion on school safety. If you haven't registered yet and are still interested in attending, please contact Leticia and she will take care of that. Earlier this month, the EdRed Executive Board approved this year's initiatives and committees. The initiatives are, number one, property tax reforms, which includes a look at TIF districts. Clear and present danger reform, we've probably been reading quite a bit about that in the paper lately. Professional development mandates relief, and remediation data sharing agreements with community colleges. The two committees we'll be having this year, which board members are welcome to join, are special education funding and school safety. If you're interested in participating in a committee, all you need to do is drop Bridget a note and she will be happy to add you to the list. That's it for EdRed.
Okay, you want to move on to IASB?
Absolutely. Let me catch my notes here. The IASB Fall Dinner Meeting will be held on Wednesday, October 26th at Evanston Township High School. We will be hearing a presentation from ETHS on their journey in equity and how they developed an equity in action plan. As always, if you want to attend, again, please let Leticia know. That's it.
Did you want to make the announcement about the new field service
Well,
person?
they did. We haven't gotten an official announcement, although there's been some mention on their page that we do have a new field service representative. Unfortunately, I don't have that page open here. So if you've got the name there, Phil, go right ahead.
Yeah, on the website, Arlana Bedard has been identified on ISB's website as the Field Service Director that will be servicing the North Cook Division. She comes from a background in public education as a principal for
We actually
several
know
years.
Arlana. She has worked with us through CEC. So she has done a couple of things with this district, so.
Okay, good. Good, okay. Very good. Bill, thank you. Arlen, anything with ISC?
A couple of things. I just had the update sent out to you. Thank you, Letitia. Secondly, our meeting is actually next week, so I have nothing to report other than, as you might expect, our enrollment is up. Two other quick things, quick notes that I need to reveal. One is that last night I attended Deb Smart's retirement as member of the Arlington Heights Memorial Library Board. She's been a real strong proponent of great things in Arlington Heights, done wonderful things with the library, and so I thank her for all her hard work and service. And then finally, the night before that, the Village of Arlington Heights, I guess it would have been Monday, had a board meeting in which there's a very strange push to limit the ability of the village, Bill is smiling because he knows this well, to limit their ability to encourage new business, to help organizations, including charities, to help supportive care facilities. The village is very active in helping organizations within Arlington Heights. This organization, who I will not mention, has been driving to try to get the village to eliminate that by ordinance. I've only spoken once before in 29 years before the village board. And I did that again this week for the second time in 29 years because it's such a patently offensive approach that they would take then with Buffalo Grove and Wheeling and other municipalities. The downtown of Arlington wouldn't be there today without the ability of the village to work with the community and work with developers. And supportive care housing would not be there today, nor would affordable housing that's developing in Arlington Heights. So I strongly support the village on this, but I just wanted to fully identify that I was there and I did speak out as an individual. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arlen. Stacy, anything? Stacy?
Just a couple quick announcements. Taste of the Town is back for the Wheeling Chamber of Commerce. They're doing their Taste of the Town, what used to be Putting on the Ritz many years ago. That's Wednesday, October 19th.
Oh.
At Chevy Chase. And then this Saturday at 8 a.m. is the community breakfast at the fire station. They're doing food donations for the Wheeling Food Pantry. And that's at the fire station at 1 Community Boulevard on this Saturday, the 24th, from 8 to, I think that says 10:30. I have my glasses on. 8 to 10:30. So that will be a nice community event. Everybody's invited. The chamber is doing monthly business after hours. Last night's was at Bill Stasek, which is a really nice event. We'll send those out when they come around, and it's a nice way to see everybody, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Jessica, anything?
Nope.
Okay. I'm sure all of us, almost all of us, had an opportunity over the last month, the first month in a school, to visit the various sites for curriculum nights or ice cream socials or whatever. I've already had the opportunity to attend 3 this season. It's a long drive coming from the Loop to try and make those early hours, but it was good seeing the activity and the interest back and all the young faces back in the buildings again. So just wanted to indicate that. Mike, did you mention the government grievance last month? The government recognition?
No.
Governance?
The governance, no, I did not. We did not, we didn't get notified until after last month's meeting, so.
The first time since 2017, our Board of Education and a superintendent will be receiving, and will be one of 33 school districts across the state to be recognized for our governance process. and Cass will be giving this to you shortly as well. Officially, we're being recognized for our participation as a full board in board development programs and events, primary focus of which is the full board development and participation, requiring full board commitment to obtaining knowledge, skills, and abilities critical to good governance. So this is the second time since 2017 that our board has been or will be recognized for that. Okay, with that, we will move on to staff communications. Dr. Collin?
Thank you. Have two items for staff communication this evening, but the first one, we're very excited to reintroduce our academic spotlight. This is something that we have done in the past. It took a little bit of a break during COVID for obvious reasons, but we want to get back on track. And so for our first presentation of the school year, we wanted to highlight our preschool programs. As you know, the earlier we are able to get our students with us and start to meet their needs and address their various developmental support needs, the more successful they are going to be as they get into their elementary school years and beyond. And so we have really been very fortunate over the past 5 years since the district really kind of took ownership of our preschool programs from a cooperative that we had been part of before to build really just some outstanding early childhood programs. Outstanding to the point where over the summer we were notified that our preschool programs had received gold ratings in our most recent evaluation by the state, which, by the way, is not an easy thing to do because some might say that some of the items on those tools that are used to evaluate programs can be a little persnickety, and yet the entire early childhood staff really rose to the occasion and showed what kind of programs we have. Also, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here, Lynn, but
Just a little.
but that's okay. You can come back to it. But also, just late last week, we were notified by the state, and we kind of wish we had been notified a little earlier, but we were notified by the state that we have been offered an additional about $290,000 for the current school year to expand our Preschool for All programming to another 80 students. This is awesome and also a heavy lift because it is September. And this is actually funding that we saw 2 years ago. So it, again, right on top of it. So we are moving heaven and earth to really try and identify where we have available classroom space, what kind of logistics we would need to figure out in terms of transportation, if we actually have people that we can hire to run the programs. Because again, as I'm sure Lynn will kind of talk a little bit about, early childhood teaching in the state of Illinois is finding unicorns. The level of certifications that they need to have, licensures, they have to have early childhood licensure, they have to have a bilingual or ELL endorsement, they have to have an LBS1, a special ed endorsement. I mean, there's all of these different things that this one person needs to have in order to work with our 3 and 4 year olds. And so, again, after the school years have started, things of that nature, we'll see. But we absolutely do not want to say no. We don't want to say we can't do this. So we are going to do everything we can to be able to expand those programs. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Early Childhood Education, Lynn Duffy, who is going to present our September academic spotlight. Lynn.
Yeah. One thing that will be easy about that new grant will be getting kids in there. We have plenty. two types of classrooms. We have 11 blended classrooms, which are preschool for all classrooms at Frost, Hawthorne, Longfellow, and Whitman this year. That's a classroom where you have one teacher, one teaching assistant, up to 20 students. Some kids have IEPs, other kids are just considered at risk. That's why PFA gives us funding. Our second type of classroom is our early childhood special ed, ECSE. We have 3 self-contained classrooms. That's the classroom where we have 1 teacher and 2 teaching assistants with up to 10 students, and those students have maybe a little bit more complex needs. And then we have our related service, and what's unique about our related service is that they push into the classroom, they never pull out. And what's nice about that is everybody benefits from the expertise of these specialists, and they deliver the therapies within the classroom individually sometimes, oftentimes small group, and even whole class, and it gets the kids at every every part of their day, and it's in context. So I want my preschool staff that's here, if you could just stand up really quickly. We have some of our staff here today. And I'm going to tell you, they're very dedicated. In addition to all those special things they have on their Pels, they're very dedicated. I think they're golden, but I just don't think they're golden. So does the state of Illinois and National Lunas University. So we were monitored, like Mike said, we were monitored. So actually, it was supposed to be in 1 year when we shut down. So then the following year, they did our paperwork, and then this past year, that's when they did the classroom visits. And those classroom visits are a little intense. They're looking for instructional excellence, family services, staff qualifications, professional development, and the program administration. But that piece of the instructional excellence, they're using the early childhood environmental rating scale, and they're looking at 5 areas, and each area has about 3 to 7 indicators. And then within that, there's about 7 levels. So physical environment, we're looking at language and literacy, learning activities, interaction, and program structures. And I'm proud to say that we really scored particularly well in the areas of language and literacy and the interactions that the students and the teachers are having together. And I think those are 2 really important areas. Our ECSE program is equally important, and they're equally dedicated and hardworking. We have 2 half-day classrooms, and then last year we added a full-day classroom. So we have some kids coming to school from 9 to 2, so almost all day. And this is a program that's developed. We're adopting a new curriculum, and they have been trained with our VB MAP assessment. So we're really picking curriculum and assessment that is really targeted for the kids that are in that classroom. Particularly the assessments, we were kind of using what we were using in the blended classroom, and it just wasn't sensitive enough. And this is giving us much better information. So everything we do in preschool is play. We have a play-based approach. And we're really looking at these areas: social emotional development, language development, concept development, and gross and fine motor. These are the things they're also looking when we were evaluated by the state. Okay. Social emotional development has been a huge area of need in the past year or so or 2. We look at self-awareness, promoting student independence, regulating ourselves, developing relationships with others. And all these skills, as I said earlier, is just integrated throughout their day, from the time they arrive to the time they're leaving. We want to give them all those practices in those areas in context, where they're actually learning how to get through their day. Language development, we develop their language in both English and in the home language whenever possible. We do have Spanish bilingual programs in our preschool program. You can see here through the use of dramatic play, puppets, students have ample opportunities, again, in context throughout their day, to use the language that they need to meet their needs and express themselves. We provide visuals, communication boards. Our SLPs are really instrumental in giving us strategies to promote language in our classrooms. Concept development is equally important. We want to get these kids ready for kindergarten and beyond. Our curriculum includes literacy, math, science, and social studies, but we really also promote the problem solving and developing those play skills. And we really want to see that more sophisticated play with the kids. Then we have our gross motor, developing their strength, flexibility, and balance and timing in the large muscles, as well as providing a variety of materials and tools to help them develop dexterity, hand-eye coordination, and using their small muscles. So we're really busy through play in our preschool program. So how do our kids get here? Couple different ways. One of the major ways is through our early intervention program. That's that birth to 3-year program where kids who are identified with having some struggles in their early years are identified and they have what's similar to an IEP, then they transition into our program. So meet our diagnostic team. If you remember, they were celebrated for excellence last spring. This team evaluates over 100 early intervention students per year. That number keeps increasing each year. They use the transitional play-based assessment. They were trained through the University of Denver to evaluate using, you guess it, play and developmental guidelines for each area of language, cognitive, sensory motor, and social emotional development. So this play-based assessment also promotes a strength-based approach. Decisions are made collaboratively with parents. I think parents really feel a part of the process. This team has been really good to doing facilitated IEPs. And, you know, some of the comments I've had from parents is like, wow, you really described my kid perfectly. So, and then they're in part of the decision-making so that we really get the proper placement and therapies in place for these kids. Another way they can come through is through community screening. Students are screened for eligibility. So we are looking at the developmental areas using a screener, not as intense as a case study evaluation, but we're also looking at other factors. We're looking, are they English learners? Do they come from families with low income? Other family structures, priorities given to kids who are from McKinney-Vento families who are in foster care. So that's really part of that Preschool for All programming, is that it's kids who are at risk. So sometimes we'll get calls from parents, well, this is Preschool for All. I like to say, well, it's really Preschool for All who might not otherwise have it. So we got to be thinking about that's the other way they come in. Okay. Another part of our program is our partnerships. Clearbrook is the early intervention program that we work with. We also started working when we first got our grant with the YWCA for our early prevention program, another 0 to 3 program for kids who are at risk, not necessarily needing special services. And then through the GEAR grant, that government emergency education relief fund, we were able to expand our partnership with YWCA, and it's been a really great partnership. We've got a social worker who's providing social services, parenting groups, parent workshops, so it's kind of those general parenting workshops, but then real specific for parents who have similar situations. Like, for example, we're starting a group of for a group of parents whose kids have autism. And that's just that commonality that they'll be able to talk through. And then also lots of referrals to the community, to community resources. We have a partnership with Prospect Music Therapy. That picture does not do justice. If you ever walk through our preschool programs, which I highly encourage you all to do, you might want to come when we're doing music therapy. The kids in our early childhood special ed classrooms, they transform, their bodies change, they move, their engagement increases so much just through the music therapy. It's really fascinating to watch. So I find everything about early childhood interesting, but this one really gets me. We also have partnerships with our libraries, but particularly Indian Trails. They provide book services for, book bags for our classrooms, cards for our teachers. They do library events specific for our preschool families, and they give us donations and do a library card event. Oop. And the last thing I want to highlight, I'm not sure if you're aware, Hawthorne got a major facelift this summer, a much-needed facelift. We got new flooring, some warm colors on the walls, and new furniture that's not just attractive, but it's functional. We've got new cabinetry and tables with wheels, child-sized sinks. We had kids climbing up a ladder to get to the sinks because they were adult size, which the PT liked, but it made me nuts. Classroom furniture for our centers, or even our play kitchens, our, what do you call that? Not stainless steel. Yeah, stainless steel appliances. No. New rugs, new flooring. It just has transformed it to be a more functional and warm the classrooms. They look larger. We just had a substitute come in for the first time since last year. She could not believe the transformation. So thanks to Kim and to Michael DiBartolo, they kind of made that happen. So that's our preschool program in a nutshell. And I also really need to highlight Kim Klein. She has done so much to really move our program forward. Her support and her let's just do this attitude has just been awesome. So thank you, Kim.
Board members, any questions? Stacy?
So, as a retired preschool teacher, from the time I was in high school until I had a practical preschool of my own, that was my job. And so when I look at what you do at Hawthorne, I am amazed. And I have to tell all of you, I am so incredibly jealous, because if I could go back and do that again, I would do it in a heartbeat. It was the best, most rewarding time in my life was being a preschool teacher. We have lots of amazing early childhood services around Wheeling and around the area. My kids went through Wheeling Park District Preschool. Some other friends went through Wheeling High School, different stuff. Does the referral relationship go back and forth? Do you have pretty good relationships with other people in the area that are providing services that pass people along that might need your services more?
We do. We could probably work on that a little bit more. We just have so many kids coming in.
Yeah.
So just as an example, we were full. In the spring, we got over 200 requests for screening just this summer, 50 between September 1st and September 15th.
I believe it,
incredible.
as that's really when the other shoe of the pandemic fell. Well, people really realized, they had to get back out in the world, not just them, but their kids also, and how to exist in the world after all of that. And when your kids are young like that, you're almost walled off from the rest of the world until you have to go out into the world. So I understand that there's a couple of people that I've met that I'm going to pass along to you. One lady opening like a special needs school. She just did a fun run or something, and a couple of people. But it's a topic I think everybody can get around. And I volunteered at Field Alva. If you invite me to be a mystery reader or come over and do a tour, I'm just saying I will look for any excuse to go back and hang out with the little ones. It's transformative to your psyche for sure. So
And
you
remember, we
invite
also
me,
have Whitman, Frost, and Longfellow. And
invite any of us, man. You could say the same thing.
Okay,
He did that, not me.
Bill,
moving on. Arlen?
quick note, fabulous presentation. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for everybody's hard work. We admire the work. My wife is a retired third, fourth grade bilingual teacher. I know how hard your job is. But secondly, one of the things I learned back when I worked in the governor's office is $1 spent now with these children will save $10 when they get to high school. It's enormously the best investment of our dollars that we can make. And that new grant is very exciting because we can do more. And maybe we'll find more ways to do this in the future. But it's not only good for the kids, but it's smart use of our money.
I think so.
Well, there's no question why this group is now referred to as the Golden Preschool Group. Thank you all very much, Lynn. Thank you for the presentation. Next, Dr. Conley?
Yeah, so we talked at the August board meeting where we had really kind of just started the school year about some of the concerns that we were having with transportation, and so we wanted to provide an update this month. Things have gotten on the whole better, but we're still struggling in some areas. And Michael and Melissa and his staff are continuously working with First Student, holding their feet to the fire to get the buses running on time. And while we're probably 95% of the way there, there's still some ongoing issues. So, Michael, if you wanted to give that update.
So we've been in constant contact literally with First Student for the last number of weeks. We've gone through a number of issues. The principals have been starting to track the timeliness of buses, and I will say that the timeliness of arrival to school and the arrival to take kids home has drastically improved. Still a few late routes here and there, and we're working with them on that. We went through a period about a week and a half ago where we kind of hit rock bottom. It was a lot of sickness, a lot of vacation time for drivers. That has now gone down. We also are getting weekly updates on their driver pipeline. So they have about 51 candidates in the pool. Takes about 4 to 5 weeks. Obviously, not everybody makes it through, but they have about 10 drivers that should be coming on in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that should stem a lot of our problems, because when they have people that call off sick, then we need to tier routes with ourselves, which is very difficult and causes a lot of the late arrivals. But some of the things that we've done to try and make the process easier is bring a more regular change system. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, changes go into effect. That way parents know in advance. They also aren't trying to pick up new routes on a daily basis. We now have a former location manager that's providing some oversight at our current wheeling lot, because the location manager there is new. And so they're doing some additional training, also looking at our routes to make sure that the tiering and the pairs that they do together make the most sense for efficiency's sake. We do have timelines regarding getting to a lot of different things that will make things more efficient. One of them is First View, which is the app. Been asking for this for some time, so that we can track the buses and know where they are. Eventually, that will, once the bugs are worked out, get turned over to parents as well. But that'll allow us not to have to call dispatch and say, where is a bus? And now that distracts them from trying to dispatch buses to take care of other issues. And then one of the last things that we were promised back when this was bid, and I was in District 23 and Mary was here, was a tablet turn-by-turn routing system, so that we're not relying on paper route sheets. And it also, and I know this from Barrington, a little girl named Sophia who found out I was in charge of transportation told me that they have a system where you get on and you swipe your card, and then if you're on the bus, it knows you're on the bus, and when you go home, more importantly, if you're not on the bus, it takes you off of the route, so it makes it more efficient. So we're hoping to get to that level of efficiency with them, but if we could just get first to the tablet, the turn-by-turn routing, that would go ahead and save time on the way home, because that's where we're really in a deficiency right now. We have substitute drivers, we have drivers that are new to routes, and so they are in a place that they're playing catch-up as opposed to having a navigation that takes them through. They say that we should start to be getting that around December. They're working out all of the different bugs, so that would be a huge help to us. And then the last thing is, we've talked to the board about telling them, look, we had a 4.5% increase. That was great. Everybody else in the area has between 10 and 15, some at 20%. In order to go ahead and make sure we secure drivers and stop having them stolen at gas stations by other companies, we've gone ahead and negotiated with them. We'll be bringing it to the board for your approval, a $2 an hour increase across the board, which will make them, again, at the top. And then also an attendance incentive, so that that is proven in their other locations very effective. And so an attendance incentive to go along with what they're already doing, which is a sign-on bonus. So I do think we are doing much better than we were a couple weeks ago. I think we continue to improve. Gail has been a great add to our department. She's been very effective in communicating with first student and families. There's always room for improvement, but I do think we are on a very good upward trajectory, so.
Any questions? Okay, Mike, Bill, I'm sorry.
Not so much a question, but an appreciation. I was at a school law conference earlier this week, and I had the opportunity to talk to any number of CSBOs, all of whom who had the same complaint, which was with their transportation. And I will tell you, I would not want to be working for First Student right now, not necessarily as a driver, but rather as somebody who has to respond to a CSBO, because you have all been cracking the whip, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, nothing else under staff communication?
Correct.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is board discussion, and I believe we have one item. Dr. Conley.
Yes, last year, in the spring, brought together a group of faculty from across the district and worked with CEC in kind of a smaller group atmosphere to develop a draft of core competencies for our graduates, a portrait of our graduates. And really where this came from is kind of as a continuation of the work that was started through the strategic planning process, and also as a kind of a precursor to a task force, or actually two task force groups that I'm going to be pulling together later this year, that we're calling them Academic Day Task Force. I'm trying to figure out a better term to capture what that actually means. But again, coming out of this, the work on the strategic plan, I've been wanting to have these conversations for 2.5 years. Thank you, COVID. So now that we're able to start to refocus on those things, and really what the whole concept of these Academic Day Task Force conversations is planned to be, is to really take a fundamental look at how our day is structured, whether it be schedule, whether it be how we deliver instruction. At the elementary level, we're pretty traditional in terms of self-contained classes, which means that elementary teachers are also teaching every subject under the sun. Is that a good idea? Is that something that maybe, being a jack of all trades and a master of none is maybe not as effective instructionally as we might want to look at it? Are there alternatives? Are there different ways that we can look at things? It's been quite some time since we've really taken a fundamental look at some of our exploratory options. And as we look at career pathways into 214 and some of their work, is there something that we should be looking at in terms of embedding additional career kind of exploration, different types of exploratory offerings that we may want to investigate? So really kind of getting in and having those types of conversations. And what we really thought was, as a way to kind of inform the discussion, was to really come up with these. What is a profile of a graduate of District 21? What are the knowledge, the skills, the dispositions that we would want our students to display when they leave us, when they head to 214 or wherever they go once they do leave us. And so I wanted to bring those as a very quick kind of awareness to the board, and I shared these with the board in a couple of my weekly updates ago. I'm going to real quick switch over to share my screen here, so just give me one moment. There we are. So again, these are organized into a couple of kind of major categories, those being academically prepared, social and emotionally ready, collaborative, courageous thinking, and embracing challenge, that that having that grit and determination to when you encounter those hard fought kind of skills, and really coming out and having a concept of being a global citizen. What's it like to be a person living in a society, and so you can see the bullet points that are under each of those. And so really from that perspective, I just wanted to, hopefully you've had a little bit of time to kind of take a look and see if you had any comments, you had any questions. Again, these are in draft form. This isn't something that I'm requesting the board officially approve this evening. I would like at some point for the board to consider approving those. But really this is kind of that source document for us to be taking a look at and matching our conversations in the academic day task force back to how does this fit with what we want to see out of our graduates. So with that, I will take any comment or answer any question that you may have.
Conceptually, obviously, this is something that we've been looking for, so that's, we appreciate the draft. Comments, suggestions, Bill?
I'm not ready to make a suggestion, but just a couple of comments. If we would have looked at something like this 10 or 20 years ago, we would be talking about what level of math are they at, what is their reading fluency, how many words per minute. This is looking at their education in a completely different way, which I really appreciate. You know, looking at the academic portions and talk about the critically consuming relevant information, recognizing perceptions, biases, and assumptions. This is really talking about how they think more than what they know.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good way to pivot our thinking and to get us to stretch our thinking in what we're looking at for our students. And so, you know, I don't know, as you say, this is not final. I would like to see more of a final draft in the months to come. But I think this is a great way to start at looking at a different way of looking what a student should look like in 5th grade and 8th grade as they're moving on in life.
And one of the things that I just want to say in terms of, and I think you're exactly right, Bill, because one of the things that I think there were a lot of positive things that came out of No Child Left Behind in 2001. But there were also a lot of things that really took us down a road that I don't think has served us well. And that is that hyper focus on, like you said, frequency of words read a minute. These surface level skill based type things. When it is very clear, you talk to anybody in the business world, they need candidates for their jobs that have these skills, that can access information, that can figure out how to work a problem. They'll give them the content that they need to know. You know, they need people who can come in and actually know how to access. I mean, where there is so much knowledge and so much information, I mean, good Lord, every single one of us has, more powerful computing, power than in the history of the world in our pockets. You can use it.
Right.
So this whole idea of having to memorize things and whatever, kind of not how this works anymore. So this is, not just something that we've pulled out of the air. This is something that we have consistently been hearing from the business owners, from the industries, that we want our kids to go and be part of when they leave us. So
Content by Google, critical thinking is really the issue. I remember when I went to law school, and one of the first things they told us was, we're going to teach you how to think. And it occurred to me that I went 12, 13 years through a wonderful suburban school district, 4 years through a top flight university, and now it occurred to somebody, we need to learn how to think. And I was 21 at the time. Now we're talking about starting this with 5 and 6 year olds. And I think that's a great step forward.
Okay, any comments? I'm going to just come down the row. So Jessica, go ahead.
I mean, when I first read this, I was not only struck by the depth of planning that went into this document, but if I could summarize this in a sentence, I would say this approach gives kids agency over their own education. And I remember that from our strategic planning team decision, committee, whatever it was called. Words not good tonight.
Sound like me.
I remember that day that we talked about giving children agency in their education, and it really stuck with me. And I went back and I did some research about it, and I'm seeing that reflected here. And I like this approach that we are teaching children from, we get them in preschool, we get them in kindergarten, we get them at a very young age. We are teaching them to become part of who they will be when they leave us in however many years. And, to echo what Bill was saying, the world has changed in the way that we approach education. I still think there's some minute value in some rote memorization of the basic building blocks, but one, that's not how kids learn anymore. And two, that's not what's expected of them when they move on to high school and, and beyond. And with the exhilarating number of challenges that our kids deal with every day, other than how to process instruction, having that handhold in and being a partner in their own learning and development, I think is quite possibly the most impressive thing we can do with any child. So I think it will be amazing to see this as it evolves into a more final document, as we start seeing it broken down into the different, building blocks as kids progress through elementary. And I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
I think it's great.
Thank you, Jess. Stacy?
So one of the things that we've talked about, I think, a lot in the last couple years is more of a harmonious relationship with 214 and the way that they have changed the way they roll out education, for lack of a better term, and the way that they prepare kids. Where, when my oldest was there, it was really a hard focus on that if you're leaving here, you're going to a 4-year institution, period, as opposed to the conversations that are there today talking about being world ready. So really, when I read through a lot of this, it mirrored the conversations that I know many of us had over the years in mirroring 214 and their style of looking at learning and looking at the world. So that was, as we go through this, that's one of the things that struck me the most is I think having, I hate this term, but I'm going to use it, which is having more outside the box conversations on where kids are in education and meeting them where they're at, as opposed to drawing the line, expecting them to stand at that line, and that expecting everybody's education to be sort of, ants marching, for lack of a better term. So I'm looking forward to this, as I know we are 214, even in their college and in life ready, that stuff is being, I think, looked at and improved and broadened out. So for me, this goes hand in hand with the way that we're looking at gifted education, with the way that we're looking at preparing our kids to go on to high school, preparing our kids to go out into the world if they choose not to go on to a 4-year institution, but really, some of the kids that come through 214 and then end up back here working for us after getting their, computer certification. Like, those are kids that I think would have been told early in middle school, you go to college or your life means nothing, where it could go a year and a half while they were still at 214, get that certificate and make a lot more money than I made in my first job outside the gate. And so to me, that's what this reflects, is more aligning up, I think, of where the world is lining up. So I'm excited to watch as it goes, but am I on the same page with you? And that's...
Yes, I mean, and as a matter of fact, you're talking about 214, Dr. Schuler and I had lunch, February last year, and talked about really needing to put some pen to paper and getting some true articulation going. We are targeting to start with Wheeling High School and our feeder schools going into Wheeling High School. And particularly with the new principal at Wheeling, we had originally planned on having this initial conversation in the spring. We delayed it next Thursday, actually, and we're hosting it here. All of our principals that are, will have kids that eventually walk the halls of Wheeling High School, as well as, Wheeling High School administrators and District 214 administrators are having that first conversation to begin the articulation, to be taking a look at data, and that's something that, we're starting with Wheeling High School, but the other half of our kids go to Buffalo Grove High School, right? And so, it's something that as a model, we're going to continue to, because, we are one of, if not, I think we're one of the biggest senders to 214. I think maybe 59 has, but they kind of go to a couple of different spots, right? So, two of their high schools are our kids. So, so we're looking forward to being able to deepen that relationship, and you know, the stars have been aligning for some time, but we're looking forward to it.
And that helps even more, to be honest. I mean, really, in reading through it, that was what rang so true for me was Dr. Schuler's speech a couple years ago at the conference. I mean, Ellie Allen took geometry and construction when she was at Buffalo Grove High School. I will tell you, for a college and career class, that was the best one she ever took and the best one that she has used out into the world.
Deb, any comments?
Well, I'm agreeing with everybody here. A lot of things came to mind. And I like that we're looking to, yes, teach outside of the box. Because when our kids get out in the working world, half those jobs don't exist now. And so we've got to we've got to work on teaching our kids how to think, how to work out their own problems. And yeah, we've all got it. We've got the information here. The kids can find it just as easily too. And let them know how to find the information. You don't have to have everything memorized. So I like this, and I like Bill's comment specifically about having something for the elementary school. So it's like, what does an elementary graduate look like, as well as
Yeah, kind of a developmental level out, yeah, right. Yep.
okay.
Arlen, any comments?
Well, Bill, when I went to law school, and I did for 1 year, it was biology. It was not critical thinking. But I remember the first teacher who sort of pushed me to critically think. That was like second year high school. A very specific teacher who asked certain questions to try to get you to think. And then it wasn't until college that I had a professor who absolutely, if you didn't critically think, you were encouraged to speak in front of the class. But if you hadn't thought out your remarks or your facts were wrong, you didn't want to come back to class the next day, but you did, because he taught you to critically think. It's really very important. That's not to say we're not going to have content. Obviously, people will think that, oh, you're going to get away with no content. That's not the idea. The content in math and maybe grammar, and there's a lot of areas where content, but as Mike said, the knowledge is here. But to me, and Mike, you and I have talked about this, I think everything on this double-page sheet is really exciting and interesting. But when I get down to global citizen, that's something you and I talked about. It seems to me one of the single most important things that this school district and other school districts must do is to teach children how to grow up in a democracy and how to be part of that democracy. Because if we don't, it may not be here someday. And I mean that with every inch of my soul. And so we've started a discussion here, but there's more to that, I think, that has to be discussed. Because I couldn't think of any topic in this day and age, and we've all seen it, that is more important than teaching kids how to find information that's accurate. What is truth? What is not? Where do I go for real facts? How do I find them? How do I contribute to a democracy? And if we don't do that, we really fail our jobs in the long run.
Stacy?
I don't really have anything more to add than what we're saying, other than, I just think we need to absolutely and vigorously protect our teachers and their right to be able to effectuate this learning. In so many instances, in so many states, you see people trying to get in the way of how teachers should teach, and the severe ramifications if they don't step in line. And that's not how you develop a critical thinker. So, just empowered and supported teachers to be able to continue this good work.
The one thing that comes to mind, and those that may be a little more senior in our audience might remember a commercial that used to be, and I'm going to try and remember it, but it has to do with a family, a father and a son looking at new cars. And the comment is, this isn't your grandfather's Buick or Chevy anymore. And to me, that's what this outline, that's what this profile seems to be getting at. And the one thing I will leave you with is that we need to be prepared once we get to the point of rolling this out to the community and our stakeholders, of having our communication really fine-pointed so that it's going to be understood in a very real-time manner, because that's going to be important. Because so many people are just going to say, that's not how I did it when I was going through. So we need to be prepared to make sure that when we roll it out, it's going to be understood that way. So
What 214 experienced when they rolled out the college and career ready, there were a lot of people that were like, what do you mean and? So they had some fairly decent pushback when you even entertained that conversation, that there are many other routes besides. And so I think this really actually gives some good muscle between the two of them to be aligned more with 214, as they even now more than ever are changing those conversations.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I remind those that the board listens for up to 3 minutes per person. And as a reminder that the board rarely engages. This is a listening time for us. So the first person is David Kim. If you would like to step up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Dave Kim. I prepared a statement prior to the late-breaking wonderful news about but I still think that there's still some good points that need to be addressed. Sir,
Could you
make sure that there's a green light on your mic? If not, it's not on. So just hit the button. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Beatrice. Thank you.
Start again, please, Dave.
Sure. So
There we go. We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Dave Kim. I live in the area, and I prepared the statement before the wonderful late-breaking news about the playground and field. But if you don't mind, I'm still going to read my statement anyways, because I
Sure.
still think
Go
there's
right ahead.
some good points. All right, so the reason I'm here tonight is regarding the playground and field. It is of utmost importance in a child's day. If you ask a young student about their day, it's very likely their response will include their experience on the playground. Studies have also shown that playgrounds instill confidence, improve attention, and decrease stress and anxiety. Given how important the playground is to children, I feel the topic of the condition of the equipment needs to be addressed. A playground needs to be used effectively and made a high priority. We visit this playground, and I have some concerns, not just related to its age, but also its safety. I did some research on my own, and based on the Playground Safety Handbook issued by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, I noticed a couple of instances where the playground and field is out of code. The first instance is the use of bare metal slides, which is on the west side of the playground. To quote the handbook, when exposed to direct sunlight, the bare metal may reach temperatures high enough to cause serious contact burn injuries in a matter of seconds. This is a huge safety concern. The other issue revolves around entrapment. Any completely bounded opening that is not bounded by the ground may be a potential head entrapment hazard. I noticed several areas where this is a clear safety issue. Additionally, I know parts of the playground are sectioned off and not able to be used by students due to safety. Students shouldn't have to deal with this. In terms of age, the structure is pushing 30 years of age. I spoke to a representative with Cunningham Recreation, one of the leading suppliers of school playground equipment in the Midwest. They also recently replaced the playground equipment at District 68 in Skokie. Their recommendation to school districts is to replace equipment every 15 to 20 years to ensure the integrity of the play structures as well as keeping up with code. This 15 to 20 year timeframe is also in line with the Wheeling Park District's cadence. By the time the equipment is slated to be replaced at field, it will have passed double its intended life expectancy. As a parent, this is concerning. Many of the surrounding districts replace their playground equipment within these important timeframes, and some do it even earlier. In closing, I strongly believe all the kids in our district should have access to safe, quality playground equipment. I'm asking the administration and board to come up with a solution to replace the nearly 30-year-old playground at Field. The district is in the process of completing a multi-million-dollar administrative building across the street from Field, and we're able to come up with the resources to fund construction. I'm asking we do the same to come up with a way for a new playground at Field, which is a lot cheaper than funding a brand-new building. This is a high priority that cannot wait. At the end of the day, the children that attend Field and live in the community deserve a much-needed and long overdue playground. We can do better and need to do better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Tom? Is it Devitt or Devitt? Devitt, okay.
All right, thanks. Dave drove me. Thank you, Dave. I also had some prepared stuff here, but it's not necessarily green light. Right on. Thank you. So we'll skip all that, and he was going to say it better than me anyway. So I think I would break this down into great news, good news, and unfortunately some bad news. So we'll start with the great news. As you so astutely pointed out last time, Mr. Pritzker, I've got a small sample size for school board meetings, but of the two that I've attended, I would call today an unqualified banger, right? That 708 presentation was great. The consensus or seeming consensus support was outstanding. I don't know the official words, the preschool group, I mean, let's give it up for them one more time. Please, I mean, that's outstanding, not just from the presentation, but from the day-to-day work. I was kind of thinking that applause was going to last longer. That's my fault. But I was going to say, I mostly feel appreciated when I see it on my paycheck. So let's get them a raise, please. Show them that we actually care. And then lastly, a big thanks for the playground news. That was great. Made my day, made my night. I'm a little bit nervous now because I wasn't expecting that. But so if that's the great news, let me specifically thank Pritzker. Thank you so much. I know you have a big part in all the decisions here. That made me feel so great. Dr. Connolly, the very sympathetic and enthusiastic nodding I got last month made me feel really good and knew that you were on it. I know you do a lot of work and you got a great team with you, so thank you for that. Arlen and Stacy, I know you guys were also weighing in on this, so I appreciate everybody who did that. And then, of course, I got to thank JR and the village trustees from Wheeling. So with that, right, there was some good news that I mentioned. That'll wrap up the great news. We are building a coalition, and we're fortunate to consider you guys on our side now. Thank you so much. Working with the village trustees is part of that, and then just neighborhood. And good news, the coalition includes a concrete guy. They live across the street from Field, so he could probably hook you up with whatever part of concrete needs to get done with this thing here. And then there's bad news now, of course. So we've got this coalition. I spent a whole month building it, and now we need a project. So I guess we'll be taking suggestions on that. You got a name yet, dude? All right, well, so we need a name, first of all, and then we need a project. My initial thoughts, and this is off the cuff, would be let's build solidarity and engagement with the community, with the students, with the board members, with everybody, right? La solidaridad por siempre, right? We need two things, I think, to do that. We need translation services, right? We talked about 30-40% of the total body speak Spanish. I'd say that index is higher for the parents at home, right? More likely they're first generation or immigrants. And at Field specifically, we're talking 80% at last time that I heard. And so again, like if you want engagement, and like when there was 3 of us talking last month, it seemed like maybe there's not that engagement. So let's have some translation services. I know a guy who speaks Polish. Like I got a guy for everything. So let's find these guys. Let's get them going. And then the other thing would be like intro music, like a baseball. You're at bat. You get to pick the song, and everybody knows it's your turn to speak. And then we could have the public comments do that as well. So
Tom, thank you for the great news, the good news, and we're going to be with you on the correcting the bad news.
I got something for you, and I know where you live, so
hopefully that's a good thing and not a threat.
well.
She's got guys too. I don't know.
And Phil, if I could just very quickly.
The last thing I want to say is that you pointed several of us out. This has been a full board grouping in terms of how we react to district needs, okay? I appreciate the individual pointing, but it's a whole group of 7 here, plus
All of us.
Dr. Conley and the administration.
Well, yeah,
If just very quickly, if I can just, as it relates to translation services, just so you know, we actually, last year, so we're in our second year, employed interpreters in the district. And so we have Spanish-speaking interpreters, we have Russian-speaking interpreters, we have Polish-speaking interpreters. Everything we publish is published in 4 languages and more, now that we have some technology that's able to do some on-the-fly translation. That has always been an extremely important aspect of what we do in our outreach, and we're always looking for ways to expand and continue with that. So we're with you, 100%.
Thanks again, Tom. The next,
I just, one quick thing. Thank you very much for stepping up and speaking out. The 708 conversation wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a consensus by this board that it was important and we needed to discuss it in public. So, but thank you for pointing that out.
okay, the last speaker is Ms. Flores. Is she still here? Yes, there she is, okay.
Good evening. I don't speak English very well. I speak in Spanish. Estoy aquí porque me siento discriminada. Yo llamé para hacer una cita con el superintendente. Solo quería 15 minutos de su tiempo para hablar sobre la preocupación que tengo sobre la seguridad de mi hija en la escuela. Y me dijeron que no, que tenía que regresar a hablar con la principal, cuando yo había hablado con ella. Me preocupa lo que están fomentando en mi hija en esa escuela. Ella está en la Twin y no soy la única a la que tiene ese problema. Hay otros padres, pero no quisieron venir porque tienen miedo a represalias tal vez.
Is there,
Can you summarize?
on one or something?
A brief summary, not a direct word-for-word translation, is basically that she felt that she was discriminated against because she came and asked to speak to the superintendent regarding a concern that she had, and she was redirected back to the principal who she had already spoken to. She has students at Twain and wanted to share some thoughts and some concerns, and she says that she is not the only parent that feels that her concerns are not addressed or kind of welcomed because she's not an English speaker. And so that's, lo siento, señora. That's kind of a short and general summary.
I'll follow up.
Thank you.
All right. Beatrice, did you want to make sure that Ms. Flores was aware that the superintendent will be following up? So she doesn't leave feeling that we're not being responsive? Okay. Okay, that's all of our in-person public comments. Mike, is there anybody in virtual land?
So we actually had one. This individual was connected, but is no longer connected to Zoom, so we'll have to move on.
Okay.
Oh, you're here, okay.
What's that?
She's here in person now.
Oh, in person. Do we have? Come on up.
Good evening, members of the board. Last week at the fun run at Riley, I witnessed something concerning. I hesitate to tell you about it because I fear for the repercussions that may come back to my child. But after a lot of careful thought, I decided that I had to report what I saw. Some of the students saw my daughter communicating with students and families from the deaf and hard of hearing program at Riley. They called my daughter a retard. They mimicked her use of sign language and laughed at her. The students then ran away from my daughter and refused to play with her, and they haven't played with her ever since. I'm working with my child at home to cope with her anxiety and very horrible depression over this. She's had emotional trauma in the past and has been hospitalized and still continues to struggle. I want her to recognize that her friendship choices should be towards those that treat her and others with kindness, but I need your help. My child needs direct support to navigate the nuances of social relationships and create friendships with other students who are kind. I'm hopeful that she can be supported to make these connections. I'd love to see her connected with other students who could become her true friends. In addition, I think the issue of bullying around learning differences is a symptom of a bigger problem. Because Riley has such a diverse population of learners, it's important that all students understand the impact of their words and actions towards those who learn differently. This instance definitely felt more than unkind and immature. It was cruel, not only towards my daughter, but also the families that were being mocked. While part of this issue was definitely a lack of parental supervision, I'm hopeful that we can create positive changes at the school level to continue to improve the culture and climate at Riley. Furthermore, to a district that works so hard to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, we should also remember to include disability awareness for students and staff as part of that work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Next item on our agenda is a consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to remove from consent?
Yeah.
Marlon?
Yeah, I just wanted to pull two things for quick comment by Mike, the Omni proposal and the YWCA.
You know, what we could,
Well, you can leave them and just,
yeah,
I just think they're so important and exciting programs and further illustrates the kind of work we're doing to help children in need of help, that it was worth touching on before we voted to approve it.
No problem. Both of these are intergovernmental agreements or memorandums of understanding that we are putting in place as a result of our participation in the Community Partnership Grant. They are providing, they're solidifying services that both of these organizations will continue to give to our district and our families in, a myriad, obviously Omni, mental health services, YWCA, parent education, many of the things that you've heard about already this evening. These are just the documents that just kind of put all those things that quite frankly are already in place in writing. So we've talked a lot about the different programs that we've worked with these organizations, and this is just reducing it to writing.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay. All right, normal comments, had a chance to review the invoices for the year, for the month. Had several questions that were responded to appropriately, fully, I should say, not appropriately, but fully. There were no conference expenses, and we had two FOIAs that were rather routine as well. So with that, the chair would accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
Bill?
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda, item 7, is consideration of the 2022-2023 district budget. The first, oh, good. First item, we need to have a motion to recess the public meeting and go in our meeting and convene a public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
All right, I vote yes. Stacy?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Harlan?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
We're recessed.
Michael?
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't see it.
So tonight's presentation will be a little lengthier than the tentative budget, but I promise to keep it to all the relevant pertinent points. So this year, we do have exciting news. Some of it reported a little bit earlier from Phil about what happened on the Finance Committee, but let's dive in and go through kind of the components one by one. So as everybody knows, and you all have seen this before, that Illinois requires us to adopt a budget regarding our income and expenses by September 30th of each year. Only in a state like Illinois can you do it 3 months into the fiscal year, but this allows us to make sure that our numbers are fine-tuned and we get it right. So a budget for a district represents a plan. It's not something that is concrete. It evolves over the course of the year and depending on what the needs are that arise, or depending on where prices go, the plan is effectuated, and it's for the delivery of instruction, our operational services, and the accomplishment of the financial goals that the board sets forth and that we put into place. So, and then, a budget is actually, for a school district, many budgets all rolled into one. There's 9 funds in total. And within the ed fund even, there are multiple budgets for different departments, schools, and different things that we take on. So that's basically the annual budget in a nutshell. There are specific timelines and requirements that we must follow. As you know, last month we approved the putting on display of the budget. That has to be for at least 30 days. We schedule a date for a public hearing and publish that notice in the paper. Those 2 things have happened. Tonight is the public hearing on the budget, and we're going to formally adopt it tonight. And then we'll submit that to the county clerk, put it on the website, and follow that throughout the year. And as is typical, we typically do a amended budget in the spring, just to capture the changes in major areas that we do. So in general, our revenue is made up of 3 different sources: local, state, and federal. Those local revenues are budgeted at actual estimates this year of what we believe they should come in at, as close as possible. Those local dollars include things like property taxes, payments in lieu of taxes, which are the corporate personal property replacement tax. That's something that Illinois has to kind of replace the taxes that businesses would pay. It's made up of sales tax and some other items. There's TIF surplus distributions that we get from the villages that we have property within that is located within the TIF. Earnings on our investments, and then food service type revenues and other activities. And those local food service revenues are ones of what we get when kids are buying lunch, not necessarily what comes from the National School Lunch Program. And then state revenues, those increases are included for what we got in our evidence-based funding. As is typical, it's not a huge amount of increase for us. We're a Tier 2 district. We're getting closer to the Tier 3 adequacy number, which is that fine line of losing some of the funding, but it also means that we're more adequately prepared for the education of our kids. Other revenue that comes from the state sources besides evidence-based funding are categorical aid, things like transportation, the Illinois school breakfast lunch monies that we get. And then last but not least is the federal money that we get, and that's budgeted again at actual estimates for this year. That would include your title and idea grants, COVID monies like ESSER 2 and 3, which ESSER 2 we're scheduled to be done with this year based upon some final HVAC projects. And then ESSER 3 are those dollars that we got to include monies for salaries and education of our kids. And we put, unlike many districts, we put almost 100% of all ESSER 3 dollars towards education for kids and for programs. So I think that's something that we can be really proud of as a district. Expenditures include a number of different items: salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, and then non-capitalized equipment. Our biggest expenditure, like most districts, or like all districts, is salary and benefits. It's around 85% of the total budget. And that's something that, you know, we've come down slightly in. It typically, in districts, the range you try and be around is 75%. We've been as low as 81 or 82% recently, so we are trying to balance that cost so that we can fund the rest of the education program, our capital needs, with what we spend on those other parts. But I think we've done a really good job of being able to utilize all the different funding so that we made sure that we have a competitive salary, good benefits, and still enough money for all the other educational program items. We try and be as accurate as possible. The team up here does a great job of budgeting and then being very conservative in making sure that what we spend on is what we need for kids. And we don't hold back. We spend a lot of money, but it's done in a very responsible way. It's done through zero-based budgeting currently at the department level, which means they build it from the ground up. So what they need for each department is gone ahead and determined. We talk through it as a group and then individually to make sure that each department has what they need to go ahead and deliver that educational program that we want the kids to receive. So that's a really important part of what gets done. What we know about what's going on today, we have a lot of positives. We had a really strong close to fiscal year 22. It's why you have two different versions of the budget in front of you to kind of talk through. Again, a lot of mindful budgeting and spending. High CPI has really helped us out. I mean, the next couple of years, we're going to get at the top of what the property tax cap allows us to get. Our fund balances are strong, and that's been a concerted effort between the board and the administration and the teachers and everybody that has an opportunity to spend a dollar and deliver the program. So there's a lower than expected planned deficit this year. Remember, we talked since we issued the debt certificates, we knew this year we would have a deficit because we financed part of it, and we were going to spend fund balance down for the other part of the building. And I'm happy to report that the planned deficit was up to $6 million, and we're really at $3.1 million. So that shows that we've done a nice job, not just in the building, but also in what people have put forward in their budget. So challenges that aren't just unique to us, but the districts around us and in the state, labor shortages, we still have about a dozen unfilled positions. There's competition for existing labor. We have had people accept jobs and then they get a better offer dollar-wise and they move on to that district. So that's something that we're working through, looking at starting salaries and how we pay, you know, where we are in that line around here. And then challenges, seamless summer funding has ended, which was everybody was able to get lunch for free and we would get reimbursed for that. And ESSER funding is going to be on its way out. And then we just have capital needs. You all know we've approved a capital plan last year, a new 10-year plan for about $125 million. And so it's working to provide the education program in addition to going ahead and making sure that our buildings are well maintained, that they keep extending the life so that we can go ahead and get the most out of them and use those dollars in other places. So, and then last but not least is just rising costs. Benefits, goods, services, it's all currently at a higher price than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and that presents some challenges, but I think we've done a good job of working through those. Keys to the new revenues expenses for this year, we have about $4 to $5 million remaining in ESSER 2 and 3 funding.
Michael, excuse me for just a second. If I could ask people in the audience not to speak because it's reverberating back to the front and we're having trouble focusing on what our assistant superintendent is speaking to us. Thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
As I said, we're at the end of the ESSER money, and so that's something that we will start planning for, and we've already started looking at to see where we go in other areas to make sure that we can, again, fund the staffing and programs that we want to fund. Our property tax levy is enhanced by strong CPI, as well as a company that we're working with by the name of Ecsc Solutions, which helps audit our valuation, our assessed valuation of homes. And I was saying during the Finance Committee meeting that we expect a fairly large increase in our valuation, and because it came through errors from the assessor's office and undervaluation on new property, that we expect to see about a 15 to 20% increase in our valuation, but our tax rate going up as well, which usually they work in inverse proportions. But when you capture mistakes, you're able to capture both the increase in the rate and the valuation. So that will be a good thing for the district. And then CPP, the corporate personal property replacement tax continues to be strong due to the economy. It's way above where it was 2-3 years ago, which that is one of the reasons that we've been able to have some of the larger surpluses. A couple of years ago, we got about $1 million in CPPRT. The last 2 years, we've gotten about $3 million. So those type of strong economic increases do help us a lot. As far as expenses go, we're able to cover about $3.2 million in salaries and benefits, which is huge. And again, that's from ESSER funds. So we're planning for that federal money that may go away depending on how things go over the next few years. And then just added salary costs due to growing enrollment overall, which has caused some increased sections. But that's what we do to maintain the class size that we see as beneficial to kids. And then obviously fuel, energy, and labor costs, again, much higher than they were in years past. And I gave the example to the Finance Committee that in fiscal year 22 alone, there were 4 price increases on the furniture we're looking at for libraries and classrooms. And those increases added 30% to the cost of that furniture. So these are all things that are keys and challenges that we work with. Looking at the budget itself, the yellow column is the tentative budget, and it's the one, obviously, there's 3 columns, the revenue, expenses, and the difference. Then we got the final budget column in blue, and again, revenue, expenses, and differences, just to show you kind of where the differences are in from tentative to final. The major differences are salary, benefits, stipends. There's some purchase services and supplies, some leases we're going to pay off early. That caused the increase in the ed fund to go up by about $2.7 million. That being said, we are still in a place that, $1.7 million. We're still in a place that, again, we are under where we thought we would be for the planned deficit. We had planned all along about $6 million. And again, that goes to the responsibility of the people at this table, the principals in the buildings, our assistants that help us get through the purchasing process, the teachers that buy. It is truly a group effort to get to a point where we can be in a financial situation that we are now. The support of the board is so huge in giving us kind of the outline of what you're looking for so that we can deliver that. The exciting part about everything is just the fund balances in general. And the fund balances that are projected at the far right, that ed fund balance is based on the selection of the second budget. So the first budget is the one that has no transfer in it, to show you how we went from tentative budget to final budget. It still has the planned deficit, and the old one, as we saw on the previous slide, was about $1.5 million. We're up to about, $1.3 million. We're up to about 3.1. But because of our surplus from last year, which currently, based upon pre-audited figures, meaning that they aren't final yet, but we have a really good look at where they are, we are at a difference in fund balance from last year to this year of about $17 million. So that is why we're proposing a $12 million transfer from education into capital projects. Because as we said, we passed a referendum in 2018 for $69 million. But that is not the sum total of work that we have to do. And so we need to keep going ahead and filling capital projects so that we can finish the work of the referendum, go ahead and enhance some of the other projects we're looking at. I will say that in our final audit, I think we will see a little bit better performance, and that's where I think we can even increase to make sure we can include playgrounds in our near future. So we will definitely start looking at that, as we said earlier, and trying to get that on the docket for the summer. But the financial position of the district is, we're in a very strong place. I think we still need to continue to make the hard decisions that we've made over the last number of years. Your stewardship is vital to that, because you give us the direction and we put it in place. So with that, I recommend the approval of the budget that has the $12 million transfer, so we could call that in the recommendation option number 2 for approval tonight.
So is that the colorful one, or is that the non-colorful?
Well, it's the black and white one.
Thank you.
Black and white.
Mine's upside down.
Well, that was also, I should have said it's the one with the upside down staple, sorry.
That would have helped Bill out a
Well,
little
it's-
bit.
Yeah, I know, well, I was trying to, because I
just
know, I was
saying.
trying to be sensitive to that, and I failed at that, so.
No problem. Since this is a public hearing, are there any members of our public that has a question for Michael? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Did I hear a second?
Me?
Thank you. Jessica?
Stacy, Alan,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill.
Aye.
I vote yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Final item under this section is the actual resolution to approve the budget as presented.
I'll move the motion.
Thank you.
Option 2.
Yeah, which budget?
Which budget?
Option 2.
Thank you.
And if I could just add, from the days when we had to cut $19 million over a 3-year period out of our budget, it is such a joy to be here tonight to see good financial news. I'm just thrilled with the job that you've done, your team has done, superintendent has done these last few years to right the ship in the way that you have. So we've done it together, but you've done a lot of the heavy lifting. We appreciate it.
I appreciate that, but just like Phil said about the comment that it's the whole board, it is truly the whole team.
Right, I did say that.
Yeah, so,
I remember that meeting in the North Commons next door when we had chairs backed up to the entrance, basically, and we made that presentation.
That was
Okay, we have the motion. It's been seconded. Let's go.
I will call the roll, but board members, please do not leave until you have signed multiple copies of the approval of the budget. Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy, Getz,
Yes.
Bill.
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
yes.
motion carries.
And just as a reminder, we have closed session that we'll be going into just shortly, so no one's escaping without signing the budget that we've just approved. We now move into new business, and we have 2 items. First one, demographic study contract.
Yeah, we have had several conversations over the past year about the need to conduct a comprehensive demographic study. And so what you have in front of you this evening is the recommendation to award that contract. This is going to provide the district with just a lot of really important information about student enrollment predictions, patterns, geocoding where kids are and what their needs are. And it's just a lot of information. We have not had a demographic study done in at least 20 years. And so it is over time to do so. So my recommendation would be that it be approved as presented.
Yes, when I first looked at, just for all of you may get a kick out of my comment here, is that when Michael and I were first exchanging emails on this in the last couple of days, I was questioning him about the $90,250 for the study. And he wrote back, yeah, that was such a great price compared to the others. And I wrote back and I said, well, I was actually thinking that was a bit high. But he assured me quite confidently that this was very, very, very competitive, and especially with the extent of information that's going to be presented to us at the end.
And it'll be about a 15-week process. There's a lot
a
of
lot.
work that goes into this, so.
Thank you. Unless there's any questions, Bill?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I'm very supportive and happy we're doing this. In the report, or the proposal, there's a quote that they'll create a draft report and discuss it with District 21. Does that mean we're expecting them to come to a meeting to discuss their results here?
That's your decision. We can certainly ask them to come to a board meeting for the draft. My thought would be that the draft would be reviewed by administration, and then a final report would be when we would have them come out, but we can do both.
But either way, okay, good. But they will be coming at some point before the board.
Yes.
And they also mentioned in the proposal that we have the option to have a one-year review in a way to see how they did. Would we expect them to come here with that as well?
So I'm sorry, you're talking about the update.
Yeah, a one-year
Right.
look at whether you want to call it an update or a review as to how their original report matched where they are a year out.
Michael, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so the idea is to now, after we do it and do that one-year review, to do a annual update. District 34, my colleague Eric Miller out there, they bring them in annually just to update the numbers, make sure that all of their assumptions were correct, because they use this for a whole host of issues, from enrollment and class sizing and facility capacity to even using it to support the HR side and negotiations because of what your enrollment does, what the needs of the population is. So yes, the idea would be to have them do an annual update and do that to the report. And in response to your question, they can come via Zoom anytime you guys want.
Yeah.
The in-person would be saved for when we really want them here.
Well, right, because they're
those
based
expenses.
in Kansas City?
Ohio.
Ohio, yeah, so it's travel.
Okay, I understand that. And I think you already answered my second question. I was going to ask, how often do you think we should be doing this? But it sounds like we're going to get an update ongoing.
Yeah, so districts either do it every year or every other year, and then there are some districts that'll do it every 5 years. At this point, having not done it in over 20 years, I think we could get away with every 5 years and be happy. But I do think annually for the first number of years would be important, especially as we're looking at enrollment, because we have seen a burst. And, we are truly looking at where we are capacity-wise, both on just a functional capacity overall and then programmatic as well.
It should also be noted that it's not $90,000 every time you do it. So
That was going to be my
That
next
was my-
question.
Yes, thank you.
you get the baseline done, and then their updating is
Just saying.
significantly less expensive.
Thank you for picking that
Thank
one
you,
up.
Mike and Mike.
Arlen?
Well, if you happen to walk through the Northgate area, you see more babies than I've ever seen in my life anywhere. And they're all indigenous to Northgate. So something's going on out there. Maybe it's the weather, Lake Michigan water, I don't know, but there's babies everywhere. But my question is this. Some of us, two of us, were here the last time that this was done in anticipation of middle schools. Part of the rationale to going to middle schools, you may remember, was the growth in the population of our schools that frankly never materialized and was way off, gesundheit. And my question really is, what percentage do we think a study like this is going to be accurate? Do we have any sense or historical sense from them? I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just curious based on my previous experience.
I think the technology has gotten much better and much more accurate. So it used to be that you just took the live birth rate of zip codes and kind of prorated based upon what you saw. Because of their geocoding of students, they're able to accurately show who has stayed in the area. They're able to show who's new to the area. I think that based upon the technology, it's gotten much better. And based upon the districts that use them in the area, 34, 225, I'm forgetting a couple, Champaign I know uses them. I think that based upon that, and I do think it's why we pay a bit of a premium, because there is a lot more technology and legwork that goes into what they do than what the other ones that we met with.
I mean, there are literally tens of thousands of data points that are being pulled together and being, that will produce this demographic study. And also, any predictive analysis, the further out you get, the less accurate it's going to be, which is also why it's important for us to continue to update it. Because, things, as we see, can change like that, global pandemic, things of that nature. So, yeah.
And one of the things they do that was unique to them is they do a subdivision and housing type yield analysis so that they can even tell you within a subdivision, within a housing type, what the expected yield of students is over time, which is not something everybody else does. So they go and pull permits at the villages. They dig a lot deeper than most other firms that we saw, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Would someone like to?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next item under new business is transfer of funds from the Ed Fund to Debt Service Fund for payment of debt certificates.
This is just the transfer of funds to cover our debt certificates that were issued to fund the building. And so we move money because by law, we have to pay those out of the debt service fund. And because they were not subject to property tax, they were not part of the levy, we fund that with money from the Ed Fund. So this is for both last year FY22's payment and now this year's FY23 payment.
Thank you, Michael. This is basically pro forma, as he just explained. Chair will entertain a
move the
motion.
motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
Jessica?
sorry, who was the second? Oh, Debbie, thank you. Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, announcements. Dr. Conley, did you want to do this one, or?
Just announcing that we have scheduled all of our ribbon cutting ceremonies for the 4 schools that have had extensive work in new libraries completed. And so those invitations are going out, and Tarkington's will be Tuesday, October 11th. Twain will be Wednesday, October 12th, Riley on Thursday, October 13th, and then Cooper middle schools will be on Thursday, October 20th, which is also where we will hold the October board meeting.
Oh, yeah. I have one thing.
Go ahead.
The Wheeling Police Department is selling these very nice patches for breast cancer awareness in honor of Chris Parr, who was a part of our District 21 family for a long time, who lost her battle with breast cancer a few years ago. She was a resource officer. She was a contributor, and she was just a heck of a nice lady. So they're $10. If anybody wants them, let me know. I'm going to order a bunch from Officer Phil Kim, our new community service officer.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
You're so
that.
welcome.
The next announcement, Dr. Conley just went with, and that was the location has been moved for our October meeting to the gymnasium at Cooper Middle School. Next item on the agenda is a recess so that we can go into closed session, and I'll read it. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves to recess the CCSD21 September 22, 2022 regular board meeting and convene in closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body, or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body, to determine its validity, to discuss the placement of individual students in special education programs and the other matters relating to individual students, and to discuss litigation when education programs and other matters relating to individual students, and to this, I just reread that. When an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent.
Second.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Stacy?
Yes.
Stacy Getz.
Okay, good.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Everyone that's not involved in our closed session, you are invited very nicely to exit to my left. You're